Some people assume that their draw length is their arrow length. That's not necessarily true, and I'm going to show you why in a second here. But a real simple way that you can pick the correct arrow length for you is I have just taken a blank arrow shaft here. This is one that we're going to cut down later, but what I did was I measured from the throat of the nock. That's going to be where the string sits against the nock, and measured down. I know that my draw length is 29 inches. So what I did was just take a silver Sharpie and I started marking off 28 inches, 28 and a quarter, 28 and a half, 28 and 3/4, 29, 1/4, half, 3/4, 30. So I went 1 inch short and 1 inch long and made all those marks on this arrow just to illustrate how you can get different arrow lengths that don't necessarily have to correspond with your draw length. We're going to take my Matthews Halon 32 that I'm hunting with this year, and I'm going to use a safe draw. This is a device that will not allow the release to go off. Like a lot of archers, I use a drop-away rest that's mounted on the back side of the riser, and that's going to be what allows us to have some variation in arrow length. So you'll see when I come to full draw, any one of those marks is inside my rest. So I could have an arrow from anywhere from 28 inches on out, and 28 to 30, or I can go full length. So you saw where we drew back where the different lines were inside. Any of them would work, as I had said. Starting with your 28-inch mark was about in here, 28 and a half, 29 inches was out at the front of the riser. So that's what I go with. I like to use a fixed head broadhead. So I know that if my arrow comes to the front of the riser, my blade is out in front of that on my fixed heads. So I never have to worry about a blade coming in contact with the riser or the shelf. So if I wanted to go to, if I was shooting expandables, they're going to fit inside this shelf easily no matter what. And if I wanted to go back to 28 inches, I could do that with an expandable broadhead. Why would I do that? Well, it cuts down on arrow weight. These arrows are 8.7 grains per inch. Just by going from 29 inches back to 28 inches, I just cut 8.7 grains off. That's going to give me a little more speed. But like I said, I like to use a fixed head broadhead, and so I like to measure, I like my arrows to stop right at the front of the riser. So I'm going to go with 29 inches for my arrow length. So now that we have our arrow length, I need to determine what's the correct spine for my setup. And your spine is determined by your bow weight, the draw weight, as well as your arrow length. Spine, what that refers to is how much the arrow flexes. You can imagine a heavier draw weight bow puts more force on the arrow and it's going to tend to flex more. So you would want a stiffer arrow. Lower poundage bows, they're going to have not as much force, so you can have a less stiff spine. Whatever arrow manufacturer you use, they have charts to help you match the correct spine with your bow. We shoot Black Eagle arrows here. Black Eagle has an arrow chart. You can find almost all the arrow charts in our Lancaster Archery Supply catalog. And if I take a look at my bow weight, which is about 68, 69 pounds, with a 29-inch arrow, what I come up with is a 300 spine. Now these charts assume a 100 grain point up front. So some of you guys who like to use brass inserts, you like 125, 150 grain points to get a real heavy FOC on your arrow, you're going to need a stiffer arrow. Because a lot of weight up front, what that does is it weakens the spine. So like we said, the charts assume 100 grain point. If you have extra up front, you may have to go to the next stiffer spine to account for that extra weight. So one of the things that we see guys want to do is they pick a particular arrow, and for whatever reason they decide that maybe it's too slow, they want to get some more speed, and so they make a common mistake that we see frequently at Lancaster Archery. So this is the Rampage 300. It weighs 8.7 grains per inch. So we'll see guys who want to cut weight to get more arrow speed, and they'll simply look at like the next spine down, which would be a Rampage 400. Now that arrow weighs 7 grains per inch. Yes, that is a lighter arrow, but you don't want to change the spine. Stay with the spine recommendation on your chart. A weaker arrow, even though it's lighter, will cause you other problems. You don't want to have a weak arrow coming out of there. So if you want to play with the arrow weight, the way to do that is to just pick different arrows. I have 3 Black Eagle arrows here. All of them are 300 spine. The X impact up front is 8.1 grains per inch. As we said, the Rampage is 8.7. Deep impact is 11 grains per inch. So you can see there how you can play with the arrow weight without changing the spine. And why would you want to do that? Well, let's say you're hunting out west, you're hunting antelope. You're going to plan on, maybe you'll have shots 50, 60 yards. Maybe you want a light, fast arrow. So you might choose the X impact. You're hunting elk or moose and you're worried about penetration. You could choose the deep impact. That's going to give you overall a heavy arrow that's going to have great penetration. Well, thanks for watching. We sure appreciate it. If you like this video, be sure and give us the thumbs up at the bottom of the page. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see videos like this and other subjects. And as always, if you have any questions, you can visit us at lancasterarchery.com.